Hey everyone, Dr. Brian Schwabe here, board certified sports physical therapist and strength coach. Welcome to the Bulletproof Your Body show. So today's topic is going to be the difference between soft tissue mobility and flexibility. So this is something I get all the time from patients on a daily basis and something I get from a lot of my readers and some of my viewers. So what is the difference between soft tissue mobility as well as flexibility, okay? And when do I need one versus the other? So let's first start with soft tissue mobility. What is soft tissue mobility? So soft tissue mobility is basically neural tension or neural tone in the muscle, right? So basically, that can happen for a couple different reasons. All right, let's use one example. Okay, let's take the hamstrings for example. Hamstrings is an area I often hear people say, "Oh, I'm tight, I'm stiff there. I stretch every day, but I'm still tight there." Well, let's talk about the different reasons why that might feel tight and why it might not be a flexibility issue, and then what you can do to test out if it's a flexibility issue or if it's something else. So if we look at the anatomy of the hamstrings, right? The hamstrings, if the fingers right here are the front of my body and the thumbs are the back of my body, the hamstrings connect up to the back of the pelvis, okay? And as a result, they're influenced by where the pelvic position is, all right? So they're influenced by if the hips get tilted forward, because if they get tilted forward, then the hamstrings get stretched, all right? And as a result of that, then they're feeling like they're gonna grab a little bit more and they don't wanna rip. So in other words, what happens is they get tight and they lock down into a protective spasm so that they can stay in that lengthened position for a longer period of time. So they're over lengthened. So in that particular case, if you're in an anterior pelvic tilt and your hamstrings are over lengthened, stretching is the opposite thing of what you wanna do. It's gonna tighten them up more. And it's probably gonna make them a little bit weaker as well. Now, in other ways that they can be a little bit tight is if you have poor lumbopelvic control, meaning that you're falling in and out of this anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. So you're almost having this tilting effect back and forth. And as a result of that, then they're being lengthened, shortened, and they're gonna grab on as well because they're in that state of I'm going back and forth and doing this yo-yo effect constantly. So again, that's another protective spasm. In that case, again, stretching might not be effective or appropriate for that type of person. Now, let's talk about when they are truly short, okay? Because if they're truly short, then you do want to stretch them, okay? But make sure that you test something out first. So how do you do that? Let's use the straight leg raise, okay? So if we do the straight leg raise and we're laying down nice and flat, what we're gonna do is we're first going to lift one leg up at a time and keep the other one down, okay? So let's do my right leg first. We're gonna come up with that. And let's say that's as far as I can get, all right? But now, let's go ahead and let me tighten my core up and get my core engaged so that I stabilize that pelvis, and then let me reach up again. And you'll see I get a lot higher. So in other words there, if I get high enough where I'm getting between 70 to 90 degrees, then I know that I don't need to work on hamstring flexibility, but it's more of a core stability issue, meaning a lumbopelvic control issue, all right? Now, I didn't go to full range there, so don't use that as an example. I was just showing you the difference of what you can do to test that out, right? Ideally, you should get about 70 to 90 degrees, more around 70 degrees of straight leg raise so that you have proper hamstring length. Now, that's just one test, but that's an example of something I use often with patients or clients to see, hey, do you actually need hamstring flexibility, or is this more of a core control issue or a lumbopelvic control issue? Now, the upper body example of that would be overhead flexion, right? So a lot of us will go through overhead flexion, we'll feel stiff, or we won't be able to go all the way without arching our back or reaching our head forward. So for the lats, for example, right, the lats connect from our pelvis all the way up to our arm. That's gonna really influence our overhead flexion. So what we need to do for that then is we need to do a test where we're laying down and we're reaching overhead with both our knees flexed, or our hips flexed, and our hips extended, all right? Because that's gonna tell us a little bit about where our lat length truly is, right? So if we lay down on our back and we bring our hips up, all right, now we're in this good position, our back is flat, hands up, and we go all the way up over our head. Okay, now I can reach the end of this table, okay? Now I'm gonna repeat the test and bring it down, okay? And go over. And I still can repeat this and get full flexion without excessive arching of my back, right? Now for those of you that, hey, I do this test and I'm short, right? Repeat it with your knees extended, okay? And then go through that same exact test. Now if you lengthen, then what happens is you probably need to work on your lats a little bit, okay? You might actually have a truly adaptively short lat length, okay? Now what you wanna focus then on is flexibility, but you can still use soft tissue mobility. So you can always use soft tissue mobility first if you want to, meaning a foam roller, tennis ball, things like that. But sometimes you actually need that true flexibility, meaning you're lengthening out the muscle, all right? Because that's what flexibility is. It's true muscle extensibility. And you want to use flexibility principles for ones that are truly short versus using the foam roller or some type of soft tissue technique for when you just have tone in the muscle because it's either in a protective spasm or it's overworked and over-dominating. So you would use that first, and then you would have to work on a stability issue later. So for that hamstring example, let's say that it was just true core control that I needed to work on. I could foam roll my hamstrings just to give myself a little bit of relief from a tone standpoint and get that stiffness out, but then I would have to really work on my core stability using something like planks or arm drivers with planks, a various amount of different core exercises so that I could stabilize that pelvis and not have my hamstrings feeling tight all the time from being over lengthened and over shortened back and forth. So I really wanted to show you guys the difference between soft tissue mobility and flexibility for this edition of Bulletproof Your Body, because it's a question I get all the time. Throw out some comments on the page, or go ahead and check me out at Brian Schwabe DPT on Instagram, and I'll try to answer any of your messages. So thanks for watching.